Book Talk has a huge problem with treating reading as if it's a competition. Like, y'all have made reading out to be something that it's not. Like, if I personally read like 200, 300 books a year because I love to read. I've been a reader my entire life. Like, it's just what I do. But also, I just make time into my schedule for reading. But it's like, whenever I read a lot, like, no matter what I do, like, if I post, like, oh, I read 30 books this month, I'm gonna get a comment that's like, oh, did you read 30 books? You listened to an audiobook, so technically you didn't read. And it's like, we're gonna ignore how ableist that is because we've already had that conversation a million times. But why is listening to audiobooks seen as cheating? You want to know why it's seen as cheating? Because you look at reading as a competition. There's no cheating in reading. Just because I listen to the audiobook, I'm still getting the information. Is it because I can do other things while I listen to audiobooks? Because let me tell you, when I'm reading physically, I'm listening to music. When I'm reading physically, I'm watching a TV show. Because I personally can't focus unless I'm multitasking. So if that's like, so if audiobooks is cheating because I can do other things. But it's like, even if that's not the case, like maybe that's not the case for you. Listening to audiobooks, I'm still consuming the book. Like, I made a video, a vlog, a few months ago, and it actually did really well, but it was me reading at work. I listened to the audiobook for half of my shift. My shift was only 4 hours long, right? I listened to the audiobook, then I read the ebook at work and on my Uber ride home, and then I finished off the physical book. So many people were telling me that listening to audiobooks weren't reading, even though I spent more time reading the book physically through my ebook and physically than I did listening to audiobook. But you saw me listen to an audiobook and you automatically were like, oh, she wasn't reading. So if I wasn't reading, how come when I picked up the rest of the book, I could sit there and understand what was going on? And then don't even get me on the topic of how, like, if you read it, so you really aren't reading. There are no rules to reading. I don't know how many times I have to tell you guys. And these are rules that you guys are making up. Oh, well, you're reading books too fast, so you're not enjoying it. If you forget the plot to the book after you finished it, you're not reading the book. Like, you didn't really read the book. There are no rules to reading. Okay, stop making up stuff to make yourself feel better. It's okay that you don't read a lot. No one who's reading a lot is in competition with you. And if they are, the block option is there. Like, I don't know why y'all act like this on Book Talk. Honestly, I am so ready for season 3 of Bridgerton to gag everybody, especially Penelope haters and those people who don't want to watch it because it's girl falls first, boy falls harder. Don't even let me get into how much that eats. Like, the idea of like being in love with someone for so long and them not noticing you, and then you finally just give up and move on, and he's like, oh my gosh, I just lost this person that was such a big part of me. And it's like, he has to like fight to get you. The groveling that's gonna come out of this. And then it's gonna be like, he's literally gonna have to watch her like date other guys. And he's gonna have to be like, oh. And then my favorite thing about Colin in the books is that Colin never really thought that he was in love with Penelope, because he thought that like the way that he feels about her was how you're supposed to feel about your friends. Like, how much he was in love with her, he thought that was like a normal way to feel about your friends. So he never really realized it was like love. So then that, like, if they include like that moment of him being like, oh shit, like I'm in love with Penelope, this is gonna gag all y'all. So just know that I've been here from the jump. I'm not one of those, oh, I don't want to watch because Colin was ugly. Because we all know that Bridgerton has like that they always had that Bridgerton glow up. So we already knew that was gonna happen, and it did. Gagged y'all, right? So the groveling is gonna eat the like love confession scene, because you know they know how to do a love. Oh, people who are like, oh, how are they gonna top, you know, Queen Charlotte or season 2, they might not top it, but it's gonna be up there. Like, you better trust in Shonda. Y'all be doubting Shonda Rhimes. I get why. I'm not gonna hold you up. I get why. But trust in her sometimes, okay? She knows what she's doing. She's been doing Grey's Anatomy, How to Get Away with Murder, Scandal. She's not new to this. She's true to this. Okay, so I just got back from seeing Challengers, and unlike most people, I'm not gonna spoil it. The only thing I'm gonna say is I'm not Team Art or Team Patrick, but a secret third thing, Team Thruple. Okay. Also, everybody was like, oh, Tashi made me so mad. Honestly, she really didn't do anything that made me mad in the movie. Like, yeah, there were some like personal choices, but I think other people played part in that, and it's not fair to only blame Tashi for something that 2 people took part in. And I just thought it was a really great movie. I cannot wait to rewatch it with like different people's perspective in mind. But to me, the point of the movie is that they all work together as 3, and that they all like balance each other out, not just like two of them or one of them. Like they all work together as like a three. Also, if you're wondering what I rated it, I gave it 5 stars, and my movie theater was giving out posters, so now I have one. I just need to figure out like where am I gonna put it, because I already have my horror movie posters. So I read 15 books in April. Let's talk about it. So April to me was a little bit of a reading slump, because I usually read about 25 to 30 books a month, but I've been consuming a lot of book like media, like movies and TV shows. So I've been more focused on that rather than like reading. And honestly, I had so much fun this month. So let me just tell you what I've been reading. So I started off the month reading Floating Hotel. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. I am a huge sci-fi reader. I love sci-fi. It's my favorite genre, but this is more so like a cozy sci-fi, and I'm not a cozy girl, because to me cozy means no plot, and I need plot in order to get through what I'm reading. So I ended up just giving this 3 stars. It was fine. I do recommend it for like a palate cleanser if you want to read it for that. I also read A Song of Ice and Fire. I read A Game of Thrones last month, so this month I just finished off the series, so I read 2 through 5. My favorite being the 3rd book. Every book got 4 stars except for the 3rd one. That one got 5 stars for me. I had so much fun. George R.R. Martin is a genius. I love the way that he writes women. I love that this is like a fantasy series. Like it has magic, it has dragons. Like this is like a classic like fantasy series, and it really felt good to read that, because I do read a lot of fantasy and I feel like they just lack like feeling like a fantasy world, you know. It just feels like the real world with like a little bit of fantasy setting. So like reading something like this I absolutely love. So I ended up rereading The Rise of the Dragon so that I could annotate it, and I had a lot of fun with that. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. I just think it's so much fun. And I also read The World of Ice and Fire, which I ended up giving The World of Ice and Fire 3 out of 5 stars. I just wanted to read more about like Targaryens and Starks, and yes, it gave that, but like I kind of didn't really care about the other stuff that it gave. I did a reread of The Telltale Heart because I listened to Matthew Gray Gulliver read this. You can find it on YouTube. I just really listened to it to like help calm me. It was so fun. Like I love his voice. I also read 1984, which I ended up giving 3 stars. I listened to this audiobook on Audible. It's narrated by Andrew Garfield and like a few other celebrities. This is also really fun, but like as a classic, I just thought it was like fine. The Game of Thrones book that I forgot to mention was I read The Sworn Sword, which is the 2nd book in the Knights of the Seven Kingdoms. And I reread this one because this talks about my favorite Targaryens, Shira Seastar and Bloodraven. And so I read this one after I read everything, so I could just get like a wide scope of that. I then read Bridgerton books 6, 7, and 8, but I read them like out of order. So my favorite one being Gregory's book On the Way to the Wedding, because that one was just insane. Like he ends up kidnapping his love interest in that book because she's about to go get married and he doesn't want her to. So his bright idea is to just kidnap her. And I just thought it was like so fun and like funny, and it's like I'm having a lot of fun reading historical romances because they're like wild, and I feel like regular contemporary romances right now are just getting like very boring, and like they're all starting to feel the same. So it's like really fun for me. And then the last book that I read this month was Funny Story by Emily Henry. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. This is my favorite Emily Henry book that I read. I'm gonna be doing a ranking video of her books soon, including Funny Story. But basically all I have to say is if you love Nick Miller and you love sitcoms, you need to go read this book today, because that was literally amazing. Let's rank Emily Henry's books. I am actually a big fan of Emily Henry. I love her romance books. I'm so excited for them being turned in films. So in celebration of Funny Story releasing, I wanted to do this really fun video ranking her books. So in last place, unfortunately, is Happy Place. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I just felt like the friendships in the book were just so like subpar, and that was like the point of the book. And I just felt like the couple really didn't need to be together. I think a lot of her romance dynamics are very fun, and then in that one they just weren't like all that great to me. The book just it just was a miss, but it still was like a 4-star read, so it wasn't like it was like terrible. It just wasn't like a 5-star read. Like, before y'all pull out y'all pitchforks, just hear me out. Beach read. Now, I read People We Meet on Vacation first, and I fell in love with that one. And yes, I do love Beach read. Like, I still love this couple. I still think the book is very good. Obviously, it takes place in Michigan. I'm from Michigan, so I actually really connected with this book. I really loved the like academic rivals to lovers, even though they weren't in school anymore. And I just thought this book was really fun. She's just not People We Meet on Vacation. I'm sorry. So then we have People We Meet on Vacation. So I really love this. This is my first ever Emily Henry book, and I think that's why I loved it so much. I have a really deep attachment to it because I remember listening to the audiobook while I was at work, and I literally can think about like what I was doing at work that day when I was listening to the audiobook and everything. I actually remember that shift going and picking up the book because I worked at Target at the time. So I really love this book. I love Poppy and Alex. I love Poppy personality. I thought she was very funny. My second favorite Emily Henry book is a lot of people's least favorite, and that is Book Lovers. I have a deep attachment to Book Lovers because I personally relate to the main character. First of all, I picture Charlie as Jake Johnson because somebody had brought that up once, and I literally could never unsee it. So first of all, I'm very attracted to him. Okay, I don't know. I don't know. I love the main character. I'm the eldest sister, so I felt like this book was like a love letter to eldest sisters, and I really just related to the main character as an eldest sister. And I loved like her working with books because I do take an interest in working with books. As always, I love the small town vibes, but I just really connected to the story like as an eldest sister. Funny enough, no pun intended, my favorite Emily Henry book is actually Funny Story, and it's so crazy because the book just came out and I just finished it. When I tell you this book was literally perfect for me, first of all, like I said, I live in Michigan, so I already knew exactly what she was talking about. There were places that like I want a vacation at that like they were going to that I was like, bro, what the Emily, are you in my head? First of all, Miles is literally a book boyfriend to me. I love Losers. I love him. I think that the banter between them was like really good. Like they had a sense of humor in this book that like I personally get a lot. Like it's very familiar to my sense of humor. It also reminds me of like sitcom sense of humor. Not to mention Miles literally reminds me of Nick Miller, and I am obsessed with Nick Miller. And the main character was a librarian, and I actually want to be a librarian. It's something I actually want to go to school for. So it's like I just related to this book a lot. Like I loved it. I thought it was funny. Like it was just so good. So I can't wait to see what Emily Henry comes out next year, whether that'll rank on this list. I need to know, what are the Bridgerton creators' plan to get these seasons to start coming out once a year instead of once every 2 years? Because my favorite Bridgerton books are like the latter half. Besides Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which is my #1 favorite, my other two favorites are Francesca's book and Gregory's book. So you mean to tell me that I gotta wait until 2050 to get these damn seasons? I'm gonna have a freaking cane and grandchildren by that time. By the time them seasons come out. Like, please. Like, I miss streaming stuff. Not streaming stuff. I miss broadcast TV. Like, weekly TV. And, like, how they would do, like, 22 episodes. And you would get, like, 2 seasons in a year. Because they would go on, like, a 6-month break. But you would be getting 2 seasons a year and 22 episodes. Now you're getting 1 season a year, 8 to 10 episodes, and not even 1 season a year. You're getting it once every 2 years. And like, I get it. I understand what Bridgerton, it was a lot of like circumstance stuff going on, because like the first season came out during COVID, so then leading up to second season they were still dealing with COVID, and then the third season, they didn't do the third season because Queen Charlotte came out, and right after Queen Charlotte was the writer's strike. So it's like, yes, I do understand that, but listen, we got renewed for season 4. Y'all should have been in the studio recording Benedict's season. First of all, Benedict's season should have came out before Collins, and it honestly could have if y'all was actually coming out once a year instead of once every 2 years. But that's neither here nor there. Okay. Also, so we're talking about Benedict. I think that we need to have a Black Sophie. I've been trying to advocate for a Black Sophie. If there's not a Black Sophie, I won't be watching the season. Simple. Okay. But that's all I want to say there. But we need to start getting them seasons to come out once a year. Okay, this is not Stranger Things. Like, I understand at the same time, like, it's probably like, you know, it's very high budgeted, it's a very popular show. I don't care. Get them seasons to start coming out. I'm not about to wait 14 years for Gregory's book. Are you freaking kidding me? Being a fan of a Netflix show is equivalent to being in hell.
I think that Western news organizations and media outlets are doing themselves a great disservice by not reporting on the genocide that is happening to Palestinians in Gaza and completely ignoring the genocide that is happening to Palestinians in Gaza, because it is creating a lack of distrust between the people and the media outlets. People like Motaz and Bisan will go down as some of the greatest, most influential journalists in modern history. It's undeniable. If you ask an American kid to name a few American journalists, I bet that they would not be able to. But they know who Motaz and Bisan are. They know who Plessia are. That in itself is creating a shift in narrative. It is creating a shift in perspective. And that is going to be invaluable. You get what I'm trying to say? Like, what's so interesting to me in what's happening right now is that because people are so distrustful of the media, all of a sudden, I've seen people apply pressure onto regular people on places like TikTok to report the truth, to be investigative journalists, to discuss about all the atrocities that are happening around the world. When in actuality, we should be applying that pressure to these news organizations. These news organizations, that's their primary function, is to report the truth on what is happening. And if they're not doing that, then we should be holding them accountable. They're not reporting on the videos that we are seeing on Instagram of the massacres that are happening daily in Palestine. They're not reporting about the atrocities that are happening in Sudan or Congo. And it is us that needs to be applying that pressure onto them. They make their money off of the millions of people that watch their news channels and get paid by advertisers. We need to be applying that pressure on these news organizations to report the truth. That is their main function. That is their obligation as journalists. And it's so crazy to me that all of a sudden people are applying that pressure onto regular people to report on what is happening globally, when you can use that time to apply that pressure on CNN, BBC, MSNBC, NPR. These are the news organizations that have to report on the genocide that is happening to Palestinians. There are still millions and millions of people that do not know about the genocide that is happening to Gaza because they don't know how to use Instagram. If you don't have Instagram, there's no way that you can see the videos that are being posted by Palestinians and Palestinian journalists. You're not seeing that. If your primary source of news is CNN and Fox News, you are not seeing the genocide happening. I think it's so important that we all collectively apply that pressure onto CNN, BBC, MSNBC, all of these Western news organizations to report the truth on what is happening to Palestinians, and not just to Palestinians, but what is happening to people in Congo and Sudan. Israel is purposely killing all the Palestinian journalists in Gaza, and it is imperative that we understand their motives and why they are doing this. Today, Israeli airstrikes targeted Palestinian journalist Wael Dahdouh's son Hamza in an attack that killed not only him but other fellow Palestinian journalists. This is a photo of the vehicle that Hamza and other fellow Palestinian journalists were in when Israeli airstrikes targeted them and killed them all. These are just a few names of the Palestinian journalists that were killed by Israeli airstrikes. This was posted a few days ago. That number of Palestinian journalists that have been targeted and killed by Israel has now reached 109. So why is Israel purposely killing Palestinian journalists? And not just killing Palestinian journalists, but also targeting their families. It's because journalists are our eyes and ears on the ground. They are by nature truth tellers, right? They risk their lives to bring us the truth. And Israel understands the power and importance of this as they commit genocide on Palestinians in Gaza. So now that we have South Africa taking Israel to international court for committing genocide, having Palestinian journalists be present and take the stand and speak on the massacres and atrocities and genocide that they witness, that in itself is evidence, because these Palestinian journalists are not just bearing witness to this genocide, they are victims themselves of this genocide, right? And because journalists follow a certain code of ethics and they have journalistic integrity, they have just a little bit more credibility than the average person. And Israel understands this. This is why they are trying to kill all the Palestinian journalists. And not only that, these Palestinian journalists today are able to utilize social media where they can pass along the truth so quickly to the masses. So now we are also bearing witness to Israel's crimes, to Israel's massacres and genocide and atrocities. They are trying to kill off all the truth tellers. The job of a journalist is to bring us the truth. They often risk their lives to bring us the truth. And right now, that is exactly what these Palestinian journalists are doing. They're risking their lives to bring us the truth. And if we do not protect them and ensure their safety, we have to ask ourselves, do we care to know the truth? And if we don't care to know the truth, then we have to admit to ourselves that to some degree, we are enslaved and we are choosing to be enslaved. I am literally so disgusted by American and European journalists who have chosen to stay silent during this genocide and to remain silent while fellow journalists are being killed, purposely killed, and not just them, but their families. I do not know why you became a journalist. You are a coward. You are a loser. The fact that at the juncture of a genocide, you are choosing to be afraid. Like, this is why people become journalists. It's for moments like this to tell the truth when it's not popular to tell the truth, and you are choosing to stay silent. I was in Palestine when the Israeli occupation forces killed Shireen Abu Akleh, who was a Palestinian journalist. The only reason American and European journalists cared was because she held an American passport, because she was an American citizen. When it comes down to it, American and European journalists are just as racist as the media and news networks that they work for.
One thing about me is an unwarranted hate train is going to make me root for a woman 10 times more than I was before. I'm not joking. Oh, y'all want to be me to Halle Bailey? Oh, let me go stream Ungodly Hour again. See, I was seated as fuck for The Little Mermaid because of the Halle hate train. I would have been seated as fuck regardless, but I had to see the movie like 5 times out of spite. The Rachel Zegler hate train? Okay, now I have to go watch The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes at least 4 times. Now we have to go stream the West Side Story soundtrack. We have to. I won't be watching Shazam. Sorry, I won't be watching that, but Avantika hate train? Okay, now I have to watch the Mean Girls movie musical, and I followed her on Instagram. I'm sorry, it's actually gonna make me root for you 10 times harder. Like, I literally don't give a fuck. When Zendaya was getting hate for Spider-Man, oh, now I have to watch Spider-Man Homecoming 12 more times. I've seen that movie an ungodly amount of times. I really just love that movie, but I would have watched it out of spite as well. They were like, Zendaya's in that, MJ, and I was like, I guess we're streaming replay. I guess we have to stream replay right now. Maybe I need to dye my hair red. Maybe even that. Like, it was very serious. When people started hating on Davy from Never Have I Ever, like, yeah, she was annoying, and I knew that she was annoying, but then I stopped saying that she was annoying once people started doing too much. That's too much. Not too much on her now. Okay? That's my friend. And then people started hating on my trade too, because she said something about liking Rapunzel, and I was like, guess I'll have to watch Never Have I Ever again. I guess we have to watch again. Like, I literally had no choice but to. Like, I really don't like people who think they're too cool for things. Oh my god, you can't have fun. You can't. But oh, this is embarrassing. Is it? Like, oh my god. Like, y'all hate fun. Like, just experience joy. You know, like, life is so fun where it's not a gremlin in your ear being like, this isn't cool, this is embarrassing, this is And I'm talking about, like, forms of, like, self-expression, I guess, not things that are genuinely embarrassing. You know how, like, when there's those people who, like, very much follow their own tune, and people are like, oh, that's kind of weird, like, they're kind of weird. Oh, you wish you had what they have. You wish you had what they have. You wish that you had the peace that occupies their mind, bro. I'm like, oh, you want to do that so bad. You want to wear a funky little outfit so bad. You want to do a silly little makeup look so bad, but something in your brain is stopping you. You wish you had the gall. Truly you do. Like, oh, that's a lot. Or even the people who are like, oh, these things are like basic. Boo, 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 boo. And it's weird because these are usually the same person. Like, the people who are mad at the people who are doing something different and mad at the people who are doing basic things. So what do you want them to do? Is there a secret third thing? Like, or are you upset that they're experiencing joy? Like, what is it?
People were like, what did you do to build the chemistry? I'm like, well, we just stopped repressing it.
Now that is how you market a TV show, because her ass could be completely lying and it doesn't matter at all, like, because you know what the show is and you're sad, aren't you? Exactly. But anyways, I'm gonna need Penelope to be serving cunt to the max, because that lady right there has a very serious face card, and if they don't use it to its maximum potential, I will be upset. You know, like, how people keep going around asking them, like, would you rather be in the forest with a bear or a man? And a lot of women are saying bear, and men need to like always find, they love to like invalidate the fear of women. They're like, oh, men aren't da 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 da. And when something happens, it's always a man. Because they always want to come out with, oh, not all men, but always a man. But always a man, isn't it? If you find women that err on the side of caution if you find that like somehow offensive or like an attack on your character, you need to do some soul searching. I don't fucking know. That is not the fault of women, girl. Because they'll always be like, oh, a man would never duh, 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 duh. And mind you, the blank that they just filled in is simply something that a man has in fact done. Like, I want to mention to a man how much I like walks. I really like going on really long walks, but I have to do so during the day in areas that there are other people around and that I know the area well. And the man was like, oh my God, yeah, I love walks. Like, you should really try like a drunk night walk. Like, when I'm really drunk, I like to just like wander around in the night. And it did not for a second, not for a second, come into his mind that only one of us is able to do those things. If I were to be living anywhere intoxicated by myself, that's already terrifying. That's already terrifying. You want me to wander around in the night? But it literally did not occur to him because it's not a problem that he has. So women will be saying these things and men are like, well, that's not real for you. That's not real for you. Like, what are we talking about? These are ships from childhood TV shows that I literally got robbed of so bad. This was such a loss for me. This was such a loss. Like, genuinely, I was sick. Tween me ate this up so bad. This had everything that I could ever want. They were giving enemies to lovers. They were giving fake dating. They were almost giving like a Romeo and Juliet type sitch. So the rundown on Casey and Brett, for those who are uninformed. She's a spy. She's like a teen spy. And he shows up as like they're supposed to be working together. He's like another teen spy who's supposed to be really good. And their cover is that they're a couple. But like they immediately, like, she does not like this man at all because he's like super cocky about like being a good spy or whatever. So we're coming out the gate with fake dating ex-enemies plot. Ooh. And then they start to like kind of like each other. But then we figure out that he's like a double agent and his father and her parents are like sworn enemies. Like Casey's dad, like his nemesis, in all caps, is literally Brett's dad. So Brett is like a double agent for the evil spy organization, which is just called The Other Side. So yeah, basically it's like revealed that like Brett's been lying this whole time and he's just been like working for his dad because his dad wants to get revenge on Casey's dad. But yeah, long story short, she escapes. I think Brett gets like caught or something. I don't remember. But then like later, there's a point where like Casey goes on a mission and she has to like go undercover on the other side. So she has to like basically double agent, like the opposite of what Brett did basically. So she's undercover at the other side and then Brett is there. So Brett knows that she's Casey and not the person that she's pretending to be. But he refuses to rat her out. I wonder where that is. And he basically like helps her complete her mission and escape, but he stays behind. So he's still working for the other side technically. And they have like a little moment. They have like an almost kiss because she's like, I'm not leaving you here because I feel like you're a good person. And he's like, no, I have to stay here, girly. But anyway, they also never kiss in the entire show. There was an almost kiss and then she gets pulled away in a helicopter. And then Brett shows up again because his mission is to eliminate Casey. So he's like in her room and she's just sitting there like, girl, you are not gonna shoot me right now, LOL. And he's like, no, like, it's my mission. Like, yeah, I am going to. And she's like, okay, do it. And he simply cannot do it. Which, like, that cracked me up. She was funny for that. Sorry. She's like, okay, do it, you won't. And he, in fact, did not. She's sitting there and she's like, LOL, you like me so bad. Like, it's actually sickening. Like, you like me so bad, LOL. But now, because Brett won't eliminate Casey, there's, like, this crazy other chick who now has to come and eliminate them both because he didn't do the mission. And they're like, oh, he's turned to the other side. But yeah, then they go on this whole journey to like escape that crazy lady. And it's like a whole thing. We do get I love yous from them both though. Gag. She thought he died at one point. It was actually really sickening. But basically how the story ends is Brett has to flee to Canada because he did not complete his mission and he will not complete his mission. And now the other side is after him. So he has to like escape to safety. And then they literally never see each other again. Like, yeah, this actually made me sick to my stomach. They were so important to me. Like, I was literally robbed so bad. But I do like the boyfriend that she had after Brett. I thought he was very sweet. But this just had the banter. An enemy slurries is actually going to get me every single time. Like, I was so fucking pissed off that her canonical endgame is Spencer and not Bo, who was perfect in every way imaginable. He was just the sweetest boy. Like, what did he do, bro? What did he do? Basically, y'all have seen Good Luck Charlie. Spencer is Teddy's ex from like a while ago who cheated on her with this girl named Skylar. And then Skylar and Teddy became friends. And then like Spencer moves away. So Bo works for her dad at Bob's Bugs Be Gone. And like from the jump, he's like very into Teddy. And they were just so sweet. He was so sweet. He brought her flowers. I like went on a date. I don't even remember this full storyline because it was so short. He deserved, like, he was so kind. I think her dad really liked him. And then they made the whole plot like, it was very much like a Miley, Jesse, Jake situation where it's like, oh, the ex that cheated on you came back and new hotter guy is here. He's so much more attractive than him too. Like, at least in Good Luck Charlie, like, she does pick Bo, but only for him to move away, like, an episode later. Like I think they tried to do, like, a Hannah Montana, he could be the one dupe scenario, but she should have ended up with him. Like, what are we talking about? What are we talking about right now? At least Jesse is the end game in that scenario. We never see Bo ever again. And it's like, not only did we not get Bo, but you're bringing back Spencer? Are you serious? He was hotter. He was nicer. Everybody likes Bo. What are we doing here? Like,
something so satisfying that will always be so pleasing to my career is when you see a couple and they're both, like, they just match in pretty. They're pretty matches because that's kind of rare. Most of the time, it's a very pretty, beautiful, gorgeous, wonderful looking woman and a man who is also there.
it baffles me that people try to convince themselves that cops are good people. Every protest that you've ever seen in your life, you can look up a photo and cops are at the scene beating the people fighting for human rights every single fucking time. Every single fucking time. They have never once been protecting the people who are protesting for the good thing. Literally never once. Because how the fuck do you respond faster to college kids protesting genocide than you do to elementary school kids getting shot? How does that work? Literally, how does that work? How do you show up faster to college kids protesting the genocide that Israel is committing against the Palestinians than you do when white supremacists are literally storming a U.S. government building shouting for the death of government officials? How the fuck does that work?
I think one of the best things that the internet has done, or just like filming things in general, has made it so that politicians can't lie directly to your fucking face. And they still do. Trust. Netanyahu still stood up on that little podium and said, the mobs on college campuses they're attacking Jewish students and they're creating anti-Semitic mobs. And then you see the mob in question and it's students sitting there peacefully. Many of them who are in fact Jewish. They're just sitting there, intense, setting up camps. Sometimes people are praying. And you really don't see any commotion. There's no violence until the police show up and start violence. And so that lame-o, loser little man is standing up there being like, yeah, guys, this is what's happening. And then you can literally watch a video and know that that is in fact not happening. It's like, not only do we have you lying in 4K, but it's like it's almost insulting to the intelligence of the public. And honestly, some of y'all deserve to be insulted because some of y'all are still falling for it. But for most people, it's just like, you look at it and you're like, oh, you think I'm stupid. Like, you think I'm an actual fucking moron because you can't be for real. Like, I just genuinely think in some ways that, like, documentations, the photograph itself has been, like, a preservationist of humanity because, like, even starting from, like, the Vietnam War, that's when people started to be like, they were like, oh, yeah, this is what we're doing over there. And then we're like, there's a fucking photograph, bro. Like, we saw, that's a picture. There's not AI in that time, girl. We see it in 4K. What the hell are you talking about? Because the reality is, these politicians would do and continue to do cartoonishly evil shit if they thought nobody can see it, if they think nobody could see it. And it's like, now we even can see it, and they're trying to convince us that what we're seeing isn't correct. And it's much, much, much harder to do that now. Girl, why you're arguing with the pixels on the screen? I can see it, bro. Y'all, I need to talk about challengers. I saw challengers yesterday. Oh, I ate that shit up. Like, this video will just be like initial thoughts and just like thoughts on things that aren't super important to the plot. So like, no spoilers in this one. I will delve into the spoiler heavy things in a minute. I feel like I could talk about this movie for maybe 8 years. First of all, the cinematography of this movie is stunning. It is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful film.
The creativity in the shot choices I thought was awesome. The way it would like sometimes you're that one shot that is just the audience and they're going just back and forth like this watching the tennis match. Sometimes you're the fucking ball. Sometimes they had a shot that was like from under the fucking tennis line. So it was like the camera, you saw his foot, the line, the ball, and then like him up. It was actually insane. I was sick to my stomach. The shots where it was like Tashi in the middle and then, oh my God, I was so gagged. I was like, oh, everything in the movie was so purposeful and I love when people do that. The styling I thought was impeccable, especially for a story where like they have to travel through time. They did it well. Like when they were supposed to be younger, they looked younger. They looked more lively. They glowed with like a certain youth. And when they were supposed to be older, like even the coloring, when they were supposed to look older, it was like less saturated, a little bit more dull. Like they looked older for real. First of all, this dress, I must find a dress in this color. I must find this exact dress even. This dress, this was so cunt. This was so cunt. And also just like young Tashi in this era, like the way that they made her look younger. Like she just glows. Like it was like she was, I think also like more tan. They made her look more tan and she just looks more youthful. Like I feel like makeup wardrobe team, you did your damn thing on this one. Even with the boys, I don't have pictures of them right now, but even with the boys, like when they did younger art, I'm like, yeah, he looks younger. They did a great job. And Patrick as well. Like I think it was just like with the way they styled their hair or the way they did their makeup, I don't know. I'll just use the screen to keep talking about it. But like, first of all, this cover, like this was the perfect cover for the movie. After seeing the movie, this is the movie. This is what the movie is about. This picture is what the movie's about. And I'm already seeing people being like, this person's wrong, this person's wrong. Well, they're all actually a little wrong. They're all actually a little wrong. Some very wrong, but they're all at least a little wrong. But I think the way the story was told, because it had such, it could have been messy and confusing, and I don't think it was at all, unless you have no critical thinking skills. But like this could have easily not made sense. It could have easily not clicked, I feel like. But it literally, they start at one point in time and they spend the rest of the movie being like, how did we get here? Gag. Like, and every fucking detail of this movie is intentional. Every single one. And I absolutely love that. Like, down to the score of the fucking tennis match. The score of the tennis match is reflective of the entire fucking movie. Again, no spoilers in this one, but I'll delve into that in a different video. I have been waiting for Zendaya to play someone who's a little evil. I have been waiting. And she ate this. Like, both, honestly, all the actors in this film do a phenomenal job. They do a great job. When I found out that that Patrick was actually just like a very unassuming British man in real life, I was like, what the fuck? Who is this? He seems so kind. I was like, oh, you were acting as fuck. Like, you were acting as fuck. Like, good for you. And like the sound is also like incredible. The song choice, where they put the sound, what oh my God, it's the speed of everything was, oh my God. The last scene, ooh, I ate it up. First of all, the last scene, by the way, in my opinion, not a cliffhanger. Not a cliffhanger, because not for the characters at least. It doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter. Again, I'm not saying the thing because I don't want this to have any spoilers in it, but it doesn't matter. It's not a cliffhanger, not for them. But I'll get into it in another video. But oh, this movie was sick. I need to see it like multiple more times. And I know I was really like paying super close attention because I know today was like, watch it multiple times. And I was like, girl, I'm gonna lock in. Time one, I'm locked in. And I feel like I clocked everything that you would, and maybe not everything, but most of the things that you should get on multiple watches. I'm also like insane when I look at literally any form of media. So that's also true. But yeah, I like also stories with characters like this because they were all like kind of likable and all kind of like deplorable at some point in time, which I love. That's how regular people are. Like, I think it's so much more interesting to portray people like this. And oh my God, like, gag. I was so gagged. And just like every detail came back to be important. Oh, they did not. Oh my God, they ate this. Like, but yeah, when I clocked that the score of the fucking tennis match was literally like telling the story as well, I was like, wait, I kind of ate for noticing that. I know that it was intentional, but like, ooh wee. Yeah, I'm gonna do spoiler ones later, but gag. Go see this movie. Gag. Like, I literally was gagged. Like,
the internet has taught me that no matter how deeply you explain something, no matter how many disclaimers and qualifications you give, somebody is going to misunderstand you on purpose because they just want to. Especially with talking about the things I talk about on the internet, I have learned that for sure. And at this point, I just let them misunderstand. It is not my fucking job to teach you, girl. I was watching this one video of a girl who was like, knowing what the intended audience of a message is, of a reading, of a video even, is a critical thinking skill. And if you cannot deduce that on your own, you don't have very good critical thinking skills. Because there should be no reason in the world that when I said, hey, women of color are very underrepresented in a lot of media, especially like media about feminist topics, the leads are usually white women. That some people like got from that, oh, but this is the fault of white women. When in the goddamn hell did I say that? They'd be like, oh, so you want white women to you don't want white women to have anything? Girl, you know what? You live in that world. I'll let you live in that world. I'm not saving you because that's not what I said, but you want to believe that's what I said, so go ahead, believe it. Go ahead, believe it, girl. I was talking about how people will like leave women of color out of those, like, the edits about feminism, the videos about this, the topics about blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh, well, I don't, da, 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 da. Okay, great, I'm not talking to you. Fantastic, wonderful. You're not the intended audience then. And people can never deduce that for themselves. They'll always be like, well, what about this? Well, what about this? What if this random hypothetical that I just made up? Girl, what? Like, what? It's the same thing that happened with the bear and the man in the woods. The men that, like, were like, oh, well, I'm not that. Okay, then we're not talking about you, girl. Then we're not talking about you. It's that simple. Like, I don't understand people's obsession with trying to make the shoe fit. If the shoe does not fit, why are you jamming your foot into it? Why are you doing that?
I'm so sorry if it takes you like 3 years between seasons of a TV show. If it takes you 3 years to make an entire new season, I don't make the show. I'm so serious. It's like by that point I moved on. I didn't remember that this was a show. And the craziest part is, it's like nowadays shows have 10 episodes. They're like 8, 9, 10 episodes, which is also insane. And it's like, yeah, I guess sometimes they will be longer than like your typical sitcom, like 30 minutes. But sometimes there'll be shows that are literally like 28, 30 minutes. It'll be like 20 something minutes because there's no commercials. And they will take forever between seasons. And I'm like, y'all used to be making 20, 25, 30 episode seasons. Almost like, I would say consistently, like every year, 2 years for some maybe, but like year and a half usually. And I just don't understand. And to me, that's almost like a lot. I'm like, oh, that's a lot. To be churning out 30 episodes a year, like that is a lot of episodes. And I'm like, yeah, we could have scaled that back. But you went from 30 to 8. And it's like, okay, maybe they're an hour. So I'll give you, even if we double it and say 16, that's still like half. You're making anywhere from half to like a third-ish of the amount that you used to be making. And it's taking you 3 times as long? Like, I'm genuinely confused. And not only that, it's taking you that much longer. You're not paying the people as well. They don't even know if they still have a job for the like they take forever with like, oh, we're renewing it or we're not renewing it. And there's also the fact that like if a show isn't like an immediate smash hit, they just cancel it. Like, that's so weird. But there's some networks who don't do that as much. But like, why do people like, it's a TV show, like people have to find it and like it, and it has to like build. You have to be able to like learn about the characters. You can't do that in 8 episodes, especially. Like, I feel like that's a setup to give somebody, they're like, you have 8 episodes, and if they don't love it and totally get it, you're cooked. What? Like, hello, you guys. Okay, someone reached out to me to ask if I could share their GoFundMe. It's a Palestinian family that is trying to evacuate Gaza. It's a family of 14 people. The GoFundMe link is in my bio. It lists out, like, you can go through the page and there's like the goals of the fund, the beneficiaries of like each family member, and it includes like short information about all of them. There are a few members of their family that like require additional health care. All of the fees are laid out for like why the total is what it is. So I just wanted to say really quickly, if that is something that you have the ability to donate to, please do. Even if it's just like, I totally understand not having disposable income. Even if it's just like, I don't know, money that you usually spend on like a coffee. And if you're unable to donate, if you could share the link or just share the GoFundMe with people that you think would be interested in donating, or just
repost this, that would be helpful as well. Okay, thank you. Once again, the link, you can just click the link that is currently in my bio and it will take you to their GoFundMe. So I'm also gonna copy and paste the link in the caption. I don't know if that works, if people can just copy and paste from there, if that makes it easier, but I'll try to do that also. In my class, we're watching the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and there's a lot of like people in that movie who are like very famous names now. I think the movie came out in like 2004, but it's like Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet, Mark Ruffalo, Kirsten Dunst, Elijah Wood. Like, there's a lot of people in this movie. Like, but I was watching the movie and I was like, why does this movie look so much more real than like our current movies or TV shows? I was like, the people, like, I was like, why do they look so much more real? Like, they look like real people here. This is just like a story about real people. Like, these aren't like, I'm not like, oh, these are actors playing these people. I'm like, yeah, I believe that you are real people. You know what I mean? And I was like, what is it? And it's their teeth. I'm so serious. They have regular teeth and no veneers. I'm being so serious when I say I feel like veneers have a dehumanification effect. Like, the veneers in combination with like the very one type of plastic surgery that is super common, it just like, oh my God, like, why don't we just look like different, unique people anymore? Like,
So a couple years ago, I lived in an eco-village in the jungle of Costa Rica. And this eco-village was run by some Europeans and Israelis. And when I got to the eco-village, there was no Israeli flag. There's nothing, religious or anything like that. And oftentimes when I talked to Israelis, they seemed very non-religious at all. They were very spiritual. And it was only until October that I realized that they were all Zionist, which I found incredibly just odd and just like contradictory, because on the one hand, you're not religious at all, but you believe that you have right to this land. And the whole point that Israelis argue that they have right to this land is because God gave the land to Jews, but you're not even connected to Judaism. So whatever. But something else that I can't stop thinking about is how so when they first started this eco-village, like maybe 2 decades ago, it was all farmland. And they planted all these trees and literally created this beautiful forest. And, one of the main things about this eco-village is about connection to nature. And actually, before you even come to the eco-village, you have to bring only biodegradable products. Like, there's no plastic. You have to use like a Diva cup. You can't use pads or tampons. All your soaps and all that have to be biodegradable, because that water that you use goes back into their environment. So I think a lot about this, because on the one hand, they were so connected to nature and they believed that you had to respect nature, and they built this entire forest so that animals can come back and they could be connected to nature. But on the other hand, they were in full support of a genocide in Gaza and the destruction of the land, right? Israel is literally destroying Gaza. They are causing destruction to nature. This is just one image of drone footage of Gaza, of what Israel has done to this land that belongs to Jewish people. This is what they've done. And so on the one hand, you are promoting, support and connection to nature. And then on the other hand, you support this. You support the destruction and genocide of Palestinians. You support the Israeli government committing an act of genocide on nature. I think something I've learned about these white-dominated spiritual spaces over the years is that these people are actually not interested in collective liberation. They're not actually interested in revolution. They know what's happening. They choose to ignore it because they get to enjoy their privilege within the system that oppresses people of color. Do you understand what I mean? And oftentimes when I observe these people and, I talk to them about their problems and issues, a lot of their problems are so individualistic. It's very much first world problems. Like, almost all the girls I remember meeting in these spiritual spaces had an eating disorder. That is such a first world problem. And like, do you think that people in the global south who are starving have eating disorders? No, they don't. You live in a society where there is so much food, but you choose not to eat. And that becomes your pain and suffering. And so a lot of these people in these communities are constantly seeking more and more. They're trying to understand more. So they want to become yoga teachers, and they want to become shamans and do Reiki and all this superficial shit. You know, they want to dress up like they're hippies and all of that. And they're never actually healing. They never really want to get down to the cause of their pain. And the cause of their pain is so self-inflicting. You know, they want to talk about climate change, but they don't want to talk about how colonial powers are causing so much of this destruction. They don't want to talk about how they participate in capitalism. And I think that this is the main reason why I feel now that as people of color, we should divest from white spiritual spaces, because they are minions for capitalism. And you know, just my time at this eco village with all these Israelis and Europeans, recognizing that they actually do not care for revolution. They do not actually care to bring in a new world for the collective. They will continue to uphold the system that we live in as they pretend to be these spiritual gurus who actually care about the world. In fact, they don't at all. They're here to be minions of capitalism. A couple of days ago, one of the leaders of the Palestinian resistance movement, Ismail Haniyeh, found out that his sons and grandchildren were killed in an Israeli airstrike while he was visiting Palestinian patients who were evacuated out of Gaza to Qatar. And the moment he finds out this information, it was actually captured. And there were some people who were commenting about how he lacked remorse, he lacked emotion. I'm going to show you guys this video in a second, but I don't think that people understand what it is to be part of a resistance movement. I don't think people really understand what it is to want to be so desperately free. When you have been put in a cage for 18 years, what you would sacrifice to be free. I don't think that people in the West could ever understand that. So the moment that he finds out that his children, his 3 sons and his grandchildren who were babies, were murdered, his exact words were, "May God have mercy on them. May God have mercy on them." And then he says, "Let's continue. Let's continue." He's in this hospital and he's like, "Let's continue seeing all the rest of the patients." And people were like, he's not being remorseful. I don't think people really understand that feeling, that urge to sacrifice it all just to be free. And it's not just about you being free. This movement is bigger than you. And I think that these people who are in the resistance movement understand that. They understand that their blood is being given so that Palestinians all over the world could be free, so that Palestinians can have connection back to the land. It is bigger than just them and their loved ones. It is about connection to land, to nature, to God. This is what it's for. And people were like, he's not being remorseful enough. And I just want to show you guys this video for a second.
يعني إن شاء الله ربنا يسهل.
I mainly wanted to make this video because I feel like people have no respect for the resistance movement, for the Palestinian resistance movement. There is so much, like, even people who are for the pro-Palestinian, movement, they don't understand the resistance movement. And October 7th wasn't an attack. It was an uprising. And I think that we should have more respect for people who give their life, and not just their life, their family's life. There are entire families that have been completely wiped out because of this genocide, because of Israel. And so the people in the resistance movement, they sign up for this. They know that this is possible, but still they want to be free. And it's not just for them to be free. It is for every Palestinian to be free. I think that is honorable, and we should put some more respect on that. This is Asna Tabassum. She is USC's valedictorian this year. And USC, for its first time in history, has canceled the valedictorian speech. Why? Because pro-Israeli lobby groups went after USC after they went through Asna's social media page looking for any posts that were sympathetic to Palestine, and they used her post to say that she was anti-Semitic, even though none of her posts were anything like that. It was literally, here's what you need to learn about what's happening in Palestine. They used this post to say that she was anti-Semitic, and then they went to USC and said, hey, you should not allow her to make a speech. Asna deserves to be heard. Asna deserves to be heard. She is top of her class at one of the best colleges in America. And the fact that a pro-Israeli lobby group can literally have that much pull over a college is wild to me. But the first thing that really upsets me is that the West has this thing about them where it's constantly making it seem that Muslim hijabi women are oppressed and that we need to go save them, right? Oh, look at these Muslim women being forced into wearing a hijab. We need to go free them. We need to let them be free. And then when it comes to a Muslim hijabi woman finally having an opportunity, the best in her class at one of the best colleges in America, it's finally her turn, you silence her. It's such bullshit. It's so hypocritical. And I think it's like disgusting. I'm so over this whole narrative that like, oh, Muslim women are oppressed and we need to go save them. Shut up. The second thing I want to say is that I want people to understand the pull and power that Zionist groups have over America's education system. I made a post about this a couple months ago, but a lot of Zionist groups have a lot of control over colleges in America because they are some of colleges' biggest donors. So historically speaking, colleges are supposed to be academic run establishments, but now they are financial institutions, okay? It's not enough that these colleges make, hundreds of millions of dollars from our tuition every year. They want more money. So these Zionist groups or these Zionist billionaires donate to colleges, right? And these colleges use this money to invest in property, to invest in stocks, to invest in whatever. And when these Zionist groups that donate to these colleges, when these Zionist billionaires donate to these colleges, they then can threaten these colleges and say, if you don't shut down these pro-Palestinian protests and campaigns and groups in your colleges, we're going to pull our donations. And these colleges get super shook, and then they go, oh, okay, we'll do that. We'll shut down the pro-Palestinian groups. We'll shut down and suspend pro-Palestinian students. And now they're going to silence a Muslim hijabi woman who is their valedictorian. Do you understand how crazy this is? This is the power of pro-Zionist groups. And I cannot wrap my head around it. And I think it's so important that this becomes a conversation that we have and we put it to the forefront. Why does it feel that Zionist groups are in every aspect of the American life, from controlling our politicians through AIPAC to our education system? Like, why do they have this much pull in America? And I think that these conversations need to happen right now because this is actual indoctrination. And I think the power that they have to be able to silence a Muslim hijabi woman who earned her right to have a speech, to speak. And the fact is that they canceled that is so fucked up. And I want everyone to post about this because Asna deserves to be heard. Whatever she has to say, if it's about Palestine, if it's not about Palestine, she deserves to be heard. And we should advocate for her to be heard. That is how we stand in solidarity. I want to tell you guys about my morning today. Now, one of the first things I always do in the morning is check my phone to see what is happening to Palestinians in Gaza. And one of the first videos I see this morning is of Palestinian doctors and civilians trying to save a baby out of a Palestinian mother's womb. The Palestinian mother has died after an Israeli airstrike bombed their family home. This baby that was in his mother's womb is the last surviving member of this entire family. The mother, the father, the son, completely unalived. And the very first video I see this morning is of doctors and civilians doing whatever they can to save this baby, and they miraculously did save the child. And I'm in tears watching this video. And the very next video is of people talking about what they're going to wear tomorrow for Coachella. And then the next video is of a Palestinian child, no more than 7 years old, expressing how unsettling it is to know that this is the year he could die. And then the next video is of someone debating if Taylor Swift's new album is better than Beyonce's country album. And then the next video is of how Sudanese people in Sudan City are in danger. 800,000 people are in danger because of malnutrition due to the ongoing war happening in Sudan that no one cares about. And then the next video is how the United States of America approved another $26 billion in aid to go to the apartheid state of Israel. And then the next video is of the students at Columbia protesting against the war and genocide in Gaza. And I put my phone down because I can't even comprehend all that I'm seeing. And I go outside, and I'm in Thailand. And when I go outside, all I see is Americans and Europeans and Russians and Israelis. I don't see any Thai people unless they are the staff and workers. And I recognize that this is another form of displacement of local indigenous people. And I see it happening everywhere in beach towns, by the way. And that is a whole different conversation that I can't wait to have. But I observe these people, and I recognize how privileged they are. How privileged they are to be blissfully ignorant to all that's happening in the world. How privileged they are to completely disregard what it is that Black and brown people in the global South experience. And I'm faced with how dystopian of a world we live in. And I wonder if my existence is also participation in it all. And then I think about just like the conditions that this baby this morning was born into. This baby, this child will never know what it's like to be held by a mother, to be held by love. Like, that baby will never know his family. That baby will grow up to know that his entire family died the moment he was born. And the trauma of having to move through that. This baby is literally coming into the world with trauma. And then I think about that 7-year-old Palestinian child that is expressing, that can contextualize his feelings in a way so much that he can express that I might die this year, and I know that I can die this year. And I don't know how to live with that feeling. I don't know how to continue on. I can't believe what we are doing to people. And we as Americans, Europeans, we are literally funding this. $26 billion again today is going to fund this. I can't even process that. And it's just making me become more and more hateful and angry towards these people. And I feel myself becoming so frustrated and angry at these people who participate in it. But more so, I feel like I am participating in it. You know, like living in America, living in the ways that we do, we are participating in the destruction of so many people. And it's something that I wonder, it's like, what happens after the protest? What happens after? It's like we're doing all these things, but what are we willing to really do to change? And these are the questions I'm left to confront myself with. And that's how my morning was this morning. That's how my morning went. Every college in America and in Europe should be following suit with what Columbia is doing right now, what the students at Columbia University is doing to protest against the genocide happening right now to Palestinians in Gaza, and demanding that their college campuses divest from supporting Israeli companies is something that every college student and college in America and in Europe should follow suit for. This is what college is about. For so long, college has become this thing where we go, we spend, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to get a piece of paper so that we can get a job in the workforce. But college was always supposed to be an institution, a thought-provoking institution where we were supposed to open up our minds, where it was supposed to be an institution where we would go in and it would challenge the way we think, our belief systems, for us to ask questions. And it was to generate innovators and the next generation of revolutionaries and free thinkers. That is what college was always supposed to be about. So the fact is, right now, seeing students protesting, especially from these very prestigious colleges, protesting against their colleges, doing business with another country, which is, by the way, why are American colleges in bed with a whole different country? Why is that connection even there? And so these students have a right to protest and demand that these colleges divest from supporting these genocidal countries. The second point I want to make is that it's so crazy that these colleges are calling the cops on these protesters, these student protesters, okay? So these students pay a lot of money, okay? It costs almost like $100,000 to go to Columbia or Harvard or Yale. I think even more for just 1 year, okay? So these students are paying large sums of money to the colleges, right? To feel safe on campus. And they have a right. They have the freedom to protest, right? They have the freedom to protest as Americans and as students. These colleges are calling the cops on the students, saying that they are trespassing and that they are making Jewish students feel unsafe. That is complete bullshit. That is complete bullshit. First of all, many of those students protesting are Jewish. Second, the fact that these colleges can call the cops on the students is crazy. It is another form of how police of a state we have become. The last thing I want to say is that a couple of days ago, Columbia had congressional hearings where they were forced to talk about the rise in anti-Semitism happening on their campuses and how it was making Jewish students feel unsafe. And Columbia chose their president, their first Arab president, to represent the university. And if you watch the congressional hearing, you can see how unprepared the woman was, but also how the U.S. government had grilled her, the way that they were grilling her and forcing her to say that the protests happening on Columbia's campus were in fact anti-Semitic. But what was even crazier was that her staff undermined her authority, even during the congressional hearings. It was very much, it made me realize just how much Black and brown people are not forced, but purposely chosen to be put in these positions of power as scapegoats. And it was so obvious that she was a scapegoat, that they were going to put an Arab woman, their first president, an Arab woman, to take the bait, to be their scapegoat. And this is something that, you also see happen with like the New York City mayor is Eric Adams. the recently you have the first Latino NYPD commissioner. So it's putting Black and brown people in these positions of power as these white supremacists are the puppet masters, and not just white supremacists, Zionists, who are the puppet masters. And they're using Black and brown people in an effort to say, hey, we're not racist. What we're doing is completely fine. Like this, look, we have Black and brown people. We're very inclusive. And then Black and brown people take these positions and they participate in the genocide and oppression of people of color. And this is something that I see happening, not in just places of positions of power, but especially with the NYPD, the way the NYPD is now filled with Black and brown people, it makes it difficult to now say that the NYPD is a racist organization if it's filled with Black and brown people.